Hopefully you get what you want tonight. I'm in a giving mood.
Busy.
You are.
guys have anything going in your office this week, huh?
And I can share.
Is there ever any doubt?
We're not above sharing.
We got,
It's crazy, right?
I
Sarah?
need one too.
Communication systems policy,
Yeah.
I read that.
yeah, I read the other one too.
Chris gave me it. That's all she gave me.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the July meeting of the Grand Traverse County Ways and Means Committee to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bonnie, will you call the roll, please?
Max Bauer,
Here.
Lemkool,
Here.
Thomas,
Yep.
Inman,
Here.
Rennie,
Here.
Chairman Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Lathrop is excused.
Yes, ma'am. The next order of business will be the approval of the June 18th regular session of the Ways and Means Committee.
Move for approval as presented.
Motion by Inman, supported by Thomas. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. This would bring us to the first opportunity for public comment. There will be a second opportunity during the end of near the end of the meeting, and we also will generally take public comment during the course of the meeting on an item that we are specifically under discussion. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the approval of the agenda. Bonnie handed me an item to add to the agenda, that being the approval to post a probation officer position in the district court. So we will add that under new business, which will be item number 11A.
There's also an item number 9E1, is that,
I believe that was already in the agenda.
It's in the packet, it's just,
Yeah, it's all in there, it's all listed on the
Okay.
agenda, it's just, here's the hard copy of the policy. Okay, are there any other items to be added? I do understand we will be going into closed session near the end of the meeting to discuss upcoming litigation.
that's correct.
Okay.
motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Support.
Motion by Lemkool, supported by Max Bauer. Is there further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. This would bring us to the consent calendar. If you would, please, Bonnie.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file, none. B, approval. Number 1, Healthy Futures Services Agreement Amendment Number 9. Number 2, Mitchell and McCormick Annual Maintenance and Support Agreement Renewal. Number 3, Written Hazard Communication Policy Revised.
Having heard the consent calendar, are there any items that someone in the audience wishes to have removed? Any items that a commissioner wishes to have removed? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion.
Motion by Thomas, supported by Max Bauer. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Bonnie.
Lemkool,
Yep.
Thomas,
Yep.
Inman,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. We have no special orders of business. We have no items removed from the consent calendar. That will bring us to department action items. First item will be the Health Department Staffing Plan Change Request for Vision Hearing Program. Wendy's going to talk to this issue.
Good evening. Wendy Stewart, Health Officer, Grand Traverse County Health Department. Here tonight, I did give you a pretty lengthy explanation in writing, but I'll just summarize. The main issue is that this is a mandated cost-shared service that the Health Department provides per Public Health Code. We have seen a 10% increase in 2013 in the vision and hearing program as far as the number of screenings that staff have performed. And so far this year, we've noticed an additional 15% increase, so that's 25% total. And looking at the population numbers of the age group that we target, we anticipate additional increases in the next fiscal year. So the need has increased. We had a vacancy of 0.8 that had been vacant for a while. We gave it up during the last budget process. We didn't want to cut any people, so that was something we gave up and didn't anticipate that this increase was going to be as large. So we are coming tonight to ask to replace 0.5 of that, so we would still have 0.3 that was cut. Jody Kelly, our maternal child health director, and Vicki Klingelsmith is our vision and hearing coordinator are here tonight, and this is what they estimate is needed. In addition, we have a senior employee who is a vision and hearing tech retiring, and so we have to get training, and that takes a while. It's pretty specialized. So the funding sources for this program are Medicaid, Medicaid cost settlement, and our state comprehensive CPBC contract with some additional county funds. We estimate if we were to add this for the remainder of this fiscal year that the actual net overage would be $3,825, and we can cover this with our Medicaid cost settlement reimbursement. So just asking to increase by 0.5 FTE in our staffing plan for vision and hearing.
Herb?
Motion to approve the staffing plan change request for vision and hearing.
Motion by Lemko, supported by Rennie. Further discussion? Jen, do you have a comment on this position, or you're just hiding back there in the corner? Okay. You know, if as long as the funds are being funded within your budget, then I think there's, the documentation that I read looks like there's plenty of need for the position, so. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion
Thank you.
carries. Brings us to human resources.
Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. This is for the social media policy. This is a new policy for the county, and really something that Dave and I have been working on for quite a long time. But basically, this policy is just to establish some guidelines for our employees. It's not to in any way prohibit any communication on social media channels, but we want to make sure that information that should not be shared on social media does not get presented on social media. That would include, client information, for example, like Commission on Aging or the health department clients. We don't want pictures of clients on social media sites or any of their protected health information. And so that's really what the intent of this policy is, really to provide some guidelines on social media use here in the county. And we do not have any current, I should knock on wood, problems in this area. This is just a policy to put in place to protect the county for future liability.
Charlie?
Who does this monitoring? Who would be charged with monitoring this stuff if someone decides it should be?
Anybody, really. Social media is anybody. Anybody could.
Who in the county would monitor looking at someone's website?
David?
normally we wouldn't do that. It would be after a complaint. For example, if someone reported to us that someone was looking at eBay all day,
We had one of those recently.
or pornographic websites, or anything like that, we could monitor. We are putting everyone on notice. We will monitor you if we get a complaint like that. If we hear of, that you have a Facebook page that, the supervisor is being trashed, and there are all kinds of bad things written about someone, defamation situation, we will monitor that. We'll look at your site, and we'll hold you accountable for what you put there. And that's all it really is. It's a preventative measure in the event that we come to, we find out about information that is something that we don't want, either that damages the reputation of the county or damages the reputation of one of our employees.
Now, that was covered pretty well in that write-up. I just want to know who does it, who can call for monitoring, a person in the public, has to be someone, an employee, anyone can call for this?
A supervisor could ask for it,
It has to be a supervisor then?
I would imagine, or another employee could ask for it.
Okay, any employee could
You
ask
know,
for
it's,
it then?
anyone can complain about anything,
So then the public could be included in that?
yes.
Okay.
As a matter of
And
fact, we
then,
have-
who actually reviews and monitors this information? Who's going to be charged with that? If it comes to that, who would actually be the person that looks at it?
Well, HR would start.
That's where it would start in HR?
Yeah, and I think there's two separate things to kind of clarify here, is our communication systems policy outlines, like, employees that are surfing the internet all day, monitoring, like, how long they've been on Amazon.com. Okay, that is already in place, that's handled through IT and Don's department. However, with social media, what I meant by everybody having access is because everyone has access. So I could have an employee come to me and say, this was said on social media about me. Everyone can monitor that. Ideally, they would report, if they see something, directly to me, or Human Resources.
Now,
Is that
if
how-
this got into place, would you talk to the person that's being monitored and let them know you're doing that?
Well, sure, eventually. I mean, it's part of the investigation process.
At what point in time?
It's part of the investigation process. I mean, if someone comes and says, so-and-so is writing about me on their social media site, we'd probably take a look at their social media site and then contact the employee and ask them, what are you saying? Yeah, I mean, part of due process is to get the other side of the story, so we would always get the other side of the story from our employees.
Okay, so if it was going over a period of time, let's say, or then how would you handle that? So you were monitoring for not just one incident, but over a period of time? For a repetitive problem or something you think?
I wouldn't handle it any differently.
Okay. So you would not notify necessarily the party being monitored?
We would eventually, yes, to get their
Initially.
side of the story. Commissioner Rennie, it's hard to tell exactly. Every situation is different. If they're posting it on a public site, then they know that they're doing it already.
I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about the county. Who's doing the monitoring?
Yeah, if they're posting something on a site, we can look at it. We will look, and we have a reason to look at it. We will look at it per the policy.
So you don't necessarily notify the person being monitored that you're looking at it?
Not necessarily.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I'm not sure that the fact that the county or HR department is monitoring, or is looking at it is any different than the 123,000 other people that hit that site.
The point is,
So that's-
those people are looking at it, but the county is monitoring this to look at wrongdoing. That's a whole different scenario.
I'm personally, I'm not much into this social media thing.
Me either.
Not at all. But I have a son-in-law that just loves the hell out of the social thing, or the Facebooking thing that Central Dispatch does.
I love it.
He's continuously telling me, well, so-and-so's cows are out in Hammond Road again, and one thing after the other. But I'm amazed at the people that tell me that they monitor those things, particularly the 911 stuff, continuously. Dean?
Just a quick comment to add to what Jen said. We don't have anyone on a regular basis that's actually monitoring these things. Usually what happens, Commissioner, is that someone will bring these matters to our attention, and they will end up in Human Resources, and Jen will do what she does, and we will review and make sure that first we have to determine what's going on, but usually someone lets us know that something like this may be happening, and that's the primary way that we're made aware of this.
Larry?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the social media policy as presented.
Support.
Motion by Limco, motion by Inman, supported by Limco. Further discussion, Chris?
Is this really necessary? I mean, it just seems to me that employees and that we have at the county have enough common sense that they know right from wrong. is this really necessary?
It's a preventative measure. It's not anticipating that employees will do this, but in the event you run into an employee that doesn't like their boss and wants to kill their boss and wants to tell the whole world about it and wants to give daily postings of how awful their life is here at the county, and, you get into that kind of a situation, and then somebody runs across it, perhaps the supervisor of this person. Oh, look what they're saying about me. I want to do something about this. Well, we don't have a policy in place. They can say whatever they want. That's why we put it into place. Because, it's a common sense policy. Use common sense, no problems. But if you do something a little over the top, and some people do, I mean, the things they put on their Facebook pages are really amazing. And the examples that I've heard in sessions, where they tell you should have a social media policy, they're unbelievable. The things that they put on their Facebook page or their, whatever account they have.
I've been told that common sense has become so rare, it's now considered a superpower. Herb?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. One is the difference between what the 86th and 13th District Court has with their policy and what we're having with this policy.
The courts have, this is more on their computer network, internet access, email, phone service, and other equipment, not necessarily actions taken on social media. It's different. It's just like the county's communication systems policy that outlines, appropriate use of, minimal personal use on your county devices. That's what that is. It's totally different.
Are we going to ask the courts to adopt this policy on social media?
Yep. I have spoken with both, and both district and circuit court have shown a great deal of interest in this policy.
Okay. The other thing I think it's mostly important to note that most companies that have a human resource manager go to a lot of seminars, and this is one of the things that pops up and says you need to be aware of, you need to be educated about, and you make sure that you have some sort of a policy that allows you to be able to handle these kind of situations. The decks are stacked against you if you own a business, completely. So if you don't protect yourself, you're not going to be in that, Sonny, you may not have that in your office today, but some days down the road, you may have that. So, and we all have to be prepared to be able to handle any of these kind of situations. And I think it's important that we move forward with this kind of a policy.
Chris?
I think there's a fine line here. I don't want to muzzle employees. I want employees to be able to come forward and say, I don't like, the policy that you did here. And this is why I don't like the policy that you did here. And this is why I think you should change it. I want employees to feel that they can come forward. That's my concern with this.
But there's appropriate.
There's a chain of command that happens when that is. If you have a problem with a policy, you can speak with your supervisor. If that doesn't work, you can speak with his supervisor or to David or the HR department. To put it out for 43 million people or whatever that is monitoring Facebook is another whole discussion. If you have an issue with a problem with something's going on in the county or with your supervisor or your people that you work with, let's handle it within ourselves, not try to put it out for 40 million people to look at that don't have anything to do with the decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Herb?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the success of 911 has been phenomenal. And I would hope that maybe some of our other departments might find ways to get people to become more knowledgeable about the services that we're offering. That social media works both ways. And, social media is entirely different than communications to commissioners or to their supervisors or to the administrator. That's entirely different avenue. When you start posting those kind of things on social media, that really puts it out into the world. Before you can even have a discussion as a county commissioners, you may not read it, but yet all of a sudden this stuff is happening out there, and it gets back to you by, I'm on it a lot, and I use it a lot for birthdays, but I'm not on to it to I'm not hooked on it that I have to be there for 15 hours a day. And some people are. And so they monitor that stuff on a regular basis. You know, when you talk about monitoring this kind of stuff, it's being monitored on a daily basis, on an hourly, on a second basis by everybody. Social media is a different policy than what you got when communication policy.
Well, communications today is different than it was in March of 2008 when our previous communication policy was written.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that.
And this is not to prohibit any protected activity. You know, employees are not, we're not looking to invade their privacy or anything. We're just trying to protect the county's legitimate business interests, to protect its own employees, to protect its reputation, you know, to not allow people to, use the county logo and use the county in any way that might be detrimental to our business interests. I mean, if we get reported that somebody is threatening someone and we don't do anything about it, that's one on us.
All right.
And this sets us up
Charlie, do you
to.
have something else?
Dave, I
Take
want you to
action.
tell me if you think that the way this is written will protect the employees from
Yes.
any kind of abuse and/or targeting, something like that. That's what I worry about.
It'll allow us to do something and allow us to look at those things without invading someone's privacy. We put them on notice that things that have to do with our employees and our business, we're going to look at and we'll hold you accountable for it.
Okay, I understand that, but you believe it's written in a sense that still offers the employee protections. So there is not abuse of it.
What do you think, Chris? I mean, you look like you want to jump in.
No, I mean, no, I think there are protections in place. I think HR has protections in place to make sure that employees are given their due process. You know, I know Dave and I and Jen, we've had some exchange emails about making sure that people are allowed to express their political views after hours, and they're not being targeted. So I think there are procedures in place to protect the employees.
Thank you.
Okay.
No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Brings us to the Health Department Director of Finance and Administrative Service reclassification.
This was emailed earlier.
No, they're just on our desk.
You'd have a hard copy on your desk.
Okay, so I sent it to Chris and asked her to pass it along. I thought that was by email, but this is the reclassification here for the Finance and Administrative Services Director with the Health Department. As you recall, Wendy was here earlier this month asking for permission to have HR reclassify the position, and we did take a look at it and are recommending the increase to the L6 grade, which is in front of you, as well as the salary range.
Basically, if I read this correctly, we're looking at about a 10% increase in the potential salary for this person. Wendy, you reported last month or a couple weeks ago about the fact that you had been unable to secure a replacement for Jerry because of the funding. Do you think this 10% will make a difference?
I guess the short answer is it will make some difference, yes. I don't know, I mean, do I know absolutely that if we offer the position, they're absolutely going to offer it? Not until we actually offer it. But I imagine this would make it definitely more attractive. And it brings it consistent with the other directors at the health department.
Quick question, if I could. I think that the last discussion, I had asked a question about other individuals within your department and that have equivalent responsibility, and they were, my understanding is that they were classified at a higher level, and this particular position was classified at a lower level, and it was just an inequity that just grew out of time because someone just didn't, the person in the position just really didn't come forward and say, this really needs to get changed, so it just got missed. So the question I have for you is, does this classification recommendation that you're asking us for, is that equal to the people you have in your department with equivalent responsibility It's the same grade level, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
Charlie?
I would make a motion to reclassify the Finance and Administrative Service Director and the Health Department to a L6.
Second.
Motion by Rennie, supported by Thomas. Further discussion? Kurt?
Yeah, I have a real problem with this on the reclassification on one person. I totally agree that it needs to be done, but I'm really concerned about other requests from other departments that this is going to open that door. And personally, a number of years ago, we looked at a 20% differential when we had hard time trying to hire somebody for a particular position. I would rather go that direction, to go with a 20% differential for them to be able to offer that as an incentive to be able to hire somebody rather than trying to open up a classification.
Chris?
I've often said that I don't agree that we need a wage and salary study. What we need to use is practical sense, practical common sense. When you have 100 people applying for a position, you know you're paying more than a fair wage. When you cannot find an individual to fill a position, you need to look at the wage and benefits that you are offering. Perhaps they're not enough, and I view that as what is happening here. I think Wendy's handling it appropriately, and I support this.
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Bonnie.
Lemko,
Nope.
Thomas,
Yep.
Inman,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes?
Max Bauer,
Yes?
Wheelock.
Yes. Motion carried. I would note that we have, in the previous discussion, when we talked about looking at this one, we have made a commitment to evaluate a reclassification program.
Idea.
Sonny,
Yes, dear.
can I request that this be in effect immediately so we can proceed? We are heading into budget
We did a roll call
season
vote,
and-
so if the motion and second are okay with that, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll sign.
It's fine.
Thank you, Wendy. John. Planning and Development. Gene's sitting here just to excite us with all this information.
I do. A great opportunity for you. I'm Jean Dorenzi. I'm the Deputy Director of the Planning and Development Department. And before you today is an opportunity to move forward with community development in our county. As you may recall, we originally started discussion with the city and the DDA for our department to contract for project management within the district and to implement the corridor master plan as well within the city. That grew when I started putting the tasks together. I always put down an economic strategy because we don't have an economic strategy for Grand Traverse County. I've never seen an economic strategy. I've tried to look for one, but we really haven't had one. And trying to move projects forward and moving our community forward, we need to have an economic strategy. And the contract formalizes the approach for community development, and it's not just for the city, it's for the county as a whole, it's for our community. And in developing the economic strategy, we'd be bringing together the local units of government, we'd be bringing together all taxing jurisdictions, which is a very important component, and also private businesses and other agencies within our community. And then that would help us determine how we're going to move forward in the future. Another component of the contract is the implementation task is the efforts to develop a communication component with all the other taxing jurisdictions. As you know, when it comes to the public and utilizing the public tools, they're public incentives. And when one unit of government approves a project, it affects all of those other taxing jurisdictions. It affects Beta, it affects the library, it affects Commission on Aging, and all of the others. We, as a local unit of taxing jurisdictions, need to start working together and decide and understanding how are we going to utilize the tools. And that is another component that we'll be working on. And then the other component that we put in there was a measurement of results. We need to know that what we're doing with the contract is really effective, and if it's not effective, do we need to change what we're doing, or do we need to change complete directions? So the measurement of results is a very important component for not just you, but for the other two parties that are part of this contract as well. I met with Administrator Benda and Chairman Lemkool. They have supported this contract. The DDA met on June 20th and have supported this, and the city will be discussing this at their study session on the 28th as well. The contract was reviewed by Civil Counsel Chris as well, and I'm asking for your support and approval of the contract as presented. I just want to step back a little bit. This is a 3-year contract. It's a $10,000 per year for each unit of government, being the city, the DDA, and the county, with an opt-out clause in Section 6 of a 30-day written notice.
Motion to approve the Community Development Services Agreement.
Second.
Motion by Lemkool, supported by Inman. Further discussion? Charlie?
I noticed you're talking regional here in a lot of this language. How does this interface or work with the governor's prosperity initiative, which is a regional approach?
The prosperity is a regional approach. I think we need to understand what our county is first before we go more broad. So this is why it's a 3-year, is really look at the economic for Grand Traverse County. When it's more of a regional approach, it's more of what are we drawing from the region in our economy.
I like the Economic Development Organization, but you also talk in there about the county and the region.
In the economic strategy or the
Well, that's part of the economic strategy. You call it an EDO.
Economic Development Organization? That is, as part of the economic strategy, I'm assuming there's going to be something that's coming out that says we need to have an economic development organization for our county or region. And if it's if currently we have the Traverse Bay EDC, is it to strengthen that? Is it to revitalize that, restructure that, or whatever that is? But at this point, I can't say what that is, but I'm assuming out of the strategy may come the understanding that we need an economic development organization for Grand Traverse County.
And one other thing I really like is the measuring of results.
I do too.
I think there's a whole lot of people would like to see these kinds of things, that approach, rather than we do some of these things and we never hear about it again.
To be able to move anything forward, you need to know if what we're doing is successful. And if it's not, we need to change.
Well, I think, Grand Traverse County's leadership with the city and the DDA will move the EDC piece of this forward. I don't have any question about that whatsoever. I was a little questioning when I read the 4th paragraph when it talks about getting the taxing jurisdictions to come together, and the fact that you include the schools and NMC. It's my opinion, but somehow or another, I don't think those people play well with others.
But I think that's not a question, I'm sorry. I want to comment that NMC is a vital, important economic engine for our community. And even through our Northern Nexus board, having them at the table, it was important to know what their goals are, to be able to know how we're going to move some other issues forward as well. And they are a taxing jurisdiction, and I think it's important that we work together.
Good luck with that. Herb?
Monday night, there was a presentation by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to the city of Traverse City. Mm-hmm. How does this going to work with that?
That's a redevelopment-ready community. It's different than this as well. It's really looking at their planning tools and how they're ready for development to come in. So are there zoning in place? How are they reaching out to the public? That type of thing, Herb. So
But this could augment or enhance that, once they get that in place?
Well, basically, I can say that it's already in place. What
Okay.
the state's doing is coming in to look at what they have in place to see if they can modify it, make it more user-friendly. Is their website user-friendly? All of that.
I watched it, and it was kind of interesting to see what they were going to try and put together and a lot of people made the comment, well, aren't we already doing it? And we are doing a lot of good things.
Right. And if you get the certification of the redevelopment ready, other doors can open for you. John is on the redevelopment ready state committee as well, so we encourage that application to be made.
Further discussion? We have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Finance Department, we start with the general fund balance.
Right, this is through June, so we're halfway through our fiscal year. On page 68, if you can locate that page, this is the revenue comparison with the same period a year ago. There's some variation here or variances, but I'm just explaining the two major ones. The indirect cost revenues are lower in 2014 versus 2013, but that was a budgeted difference. At some point in time, those indirect cost revenues will increase as our costs increase, but a reason, one of the main reasons that those costs are lower is because of the net asset distributions that we've been receiving from MMRMA. If I had one concern on our revenues at this point in time, it's our Register of Deeds revenues, which have been very strong for the last several years with property sales, real estate transactions. They're lagging this year compared to where they have been. I don't know if that's a function of the hard winter that we've had, and that is one of the reasons why the charges for services revenues are about $45,000 or $46,000 behind where we were a year ago. We have an issue with court costs that we're trying to work through that may have some impact on those revenues, but I really don't know enough about that at this point to comment. And then the next page, this is 69, page 69 in your packet, is a comparison of the expenditures. And the notes are indicating that a lot of the change compared to last year, which are increases, are in the area of personnel costs. We've had, it's somewhat, I don't want to say distorted, but it's somewhat affected by the fact that we've had a number of people retire, a couple in the sheriff's office, and they've had some accumulated leave banks that have been paid out. In the cases of those departments, I've looked at where the personnel costs will be. There's no issue with being over budget on, one was in the Detective Bureau, and then the other was in County Patrol, but we're still well within budget. I do expect that we'll have personnel funds in the general fund that will not be expended like we normally have because we're, budgeting for full employment. And then the main difference there with the transfers out are primarily timing. There's no budget issues with that at all. It's based on when we record the transfers out to cover mostly activity in circuit court and district court. So other than the Register of Deeds revenue, we're on track with what we've budgeted. So unless you have any specific questions, we can move on.
Moving forward.
The next item, I have a few budget adjustments that require your approval. I did the first one. This is on page 71. I'm making an adjustment to reflect the fact that our indirect cost recovery revenue is lower. This brings it down to the actual amounts that we've invoiced for, and that's completely covered by the related indirect costs that are budgeted in two of the court budgets, probate court and the family division. So that's budget neutral. so to speak. We did receive a grant for the purchase of a canine. And then going to page 72, we generally have carryover grant dollars for the CDBG housing grant. That's what we're doing here, is budgeting the balance of a grant that in effect started last year. And then there's a couple, there's a fund balance increase for the Commission on Aging, which was approved by their board. And then also, we're budgeting some fund balance in the County Facilities Fund. One is a carryover project, and one is for some ADA work that really needed to be completed on the second floor of the Hall of Justice. So asking for your approval of those budget amendments.
Second. Motion by Thomas, supported by Rennie, to approve the budget adjustments as outlined by the Finance Director. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay, corrected action plan.
Can I leave the room now?
No.
Now, this is concerning our 2013 audit report. I really tried to have our auditor here tonight to present the 2013 audit, but he was not able to make that. He had 3 other presentations to do, so I guess we drew the short straw. But the audit was submitted to the state, to the Department of Treasury. We do all of that online, and you can see that it's due June 30th. It was submitted a few days prior to that, but on page 75 and 76, you'll see a letter that was received from the Department of Treasury concerning some findings or some issues that were raised. And if you look at page 75, they identify 3. The first one is actual expenditures exceeded the amounts authorized in the budget. We had 2 line items that were over by a total of $5,000 in our general fund and special revenue funds. And I think that's fairly good considering how many different places we budget. I'm not making an excuse for that, but it's almost impossible to anticipate every invoice that there might be out there. We try to do that, but and this is actually something that we've had in previous reports, but I do have a response to it which follows this. The item 12, there were reported deficiencies from previous years. I'll go over this in more detail, and the auditor, I'm sure, will want to talk about this, but they're basically addressing either transactions that were not recorded, and they had recommended last year that we amend our fund balance policy to include the new terminology. We've gone from 3 classifications of fund balance. There are now 5. Your finance director simply did not get that done. So the reported deficiencies were for the fact that they recommended we amend our fund balance policy, but they also reported that we had some transactions that were not recorded, which goes down then to number 18. And we had three cases where they thought that management of the county should have recorded transactions that were not recorded. One was one was concerning the additional payment that we received from the state for the liquor tax. And this is only the 2nd year that we received the 4th payment. I had a discussion with the auditor for 2012, and they concurred with me that based on the fact that that was the first time, we didn't need to record it in 2012. You can record that in your, different auditor, same auditor, different manager doing the job, and that was not the case. We also had an OPEB liability at the pavilions that had not previously been recorded. That was one of the 3 findings. And the 3rd finding was the fact that we received various loans from the state for our brownfield projects. We had actually recorded the proceeds of the loans, but there's a second transaction that needs to be recorded that's all balance sheet, and we simply did not do that. Attached, we have 30 days to respond to this letter. I have drafted a response addressing the 3 issues, and I would ask for your authorization to submit that to the state. For the budget variances, I can't guarantee you that we'll make every budget adjustment or catch every potential expenditure that might be over budget. I simply don't know how to do that. I mean, things happen that we're not aware of. You have departments that are doing things, but I am indicating that we will continue to improve our year-end reviews to make sure that we can avoid that to the extent possible. Probably the most important one, if you scroll down to page 77, what we're going to do, obviously, if we receive a 4th payment from the state for the convention facilities liquor tax, that's going to be recorded as a current year revenue. We generally get that in January. The books are still open. The pavilions are, they're aware that they have an OPEB obligation, and they will be doing the required valuations to make sure that that liability is accounted for. They've assured me they will do that. And I am working with Jean and the treasurer to make sure that when we receive the any loans regarding the brownfield, that we do the other transaction that needs to go with that. You're recording a loan. How does that go? You're recording the loan and deferring revenue. So it's all balance sheet. It's not. And as those loans are paid off, you simply reverse the entry that was recorded. So that's what we need to do. That's what we'll be doing, and that's what I'm indicating here we will do. We had one other issue with how we accounted for documented payroll costs on an EPA grant. I've discussed that with Jean, and my staff is going to receive training. There's actually some new uniform cost principles that have been proposed by the Office of Management and Budget, and we are going to attend that training, so we're fully aware of what those reporting requirements are. That summarizes the corrective action plan. It has not been submitted because I really think that I should have your approval to do that before it's submitted.
Charlie? Dean, are you confident your corrective action plan will satisfy these folks?
Yes, yes.
I would make a motion to approve this letter if we need a motion.
Second.
Motion by Rennie, supported by Ian. Further discussion? Let's start with Herb.
I guess my concern about this is not so much what the audit is, but who the letter's going to. The auditors should be reporting to us as the Board of Commissioners. And this is actually going to Dean before it comes to us. And I'm a little bit concerned about that. So I don't know if the state doesn't understand that what their responsibilities are for us as commissioners, that, we are the one responsible for the audit. And so, I don't know if you got a response to that, Dean, or what, but, because, the auditor reports to us, not to Dean.
I do. The audit report is their correspondence, the audit, and you haven't received the audit yet, but that does come to you. I mean, obviously, they're working with me. Commissioner Lemkool has had this concern for a number of years. I don't know how to deal with that.
I don't either. Yeah.
The correspondence, I think Treasury, I've never seen one of these letters come back to, I'm not the chief financial officer. I mean, they come in, they end up on my desk. And Dave's busy. I take care of these things because that's, I think, what you want me to do.
Yep.
I certainly,
I
if I had a choice.
I don't want to put you on the spot here,
If
but.
I had a choice, I would just as soon not have to deal with these matters, but
Yeah.
the audit report itself is addressed to the Board of Commissioners.
Dave?
Yeah, the corrective action plan, this isn't filled with anything that's very shocking to me. It's the pavilions didn't report their OPEB liability. The brownfield, there was a couple entries that didn't get made, that should have been made, that were on the balance sheet, no big deal to me. I mean, it should have been done right, but that's what it's called, a corrective action plan, not a let's get down on the finance director plan. But the one thing you can do something about is the budget variances, and Dean points out that he doesn't know how to do that, and as a budget director in Ingham County and as a county administrator in 2 other counties, I couldn't do anything about those either. When you budget on a line item basis, that's what you end up doing. You end up having variances in certain accounts, especially big ones like boarding inmates when the bill comes in from the county a month and a half later. And, you know, there's just some things you can't anticipate. But what you can do is you can budget on a cost category basis rather than a line item basis. It's the basis of accounting, the basis of budgeting. Your budgetary basis, if you were to change that to a cost category basis so that personnel was all one category, not every single line item in the personnel expenses would have to be exactly budgeted perfectly, you know, that can alleviate a lot of Gene's angst when it comes to closing out at year end. He's trying to get every one of them, but when the books are finally closed, he may not be able to. So that's something to consider when we adopt the budget for 2015. We can change that cost basis. We could actually amend the budget, the appropriations resolution for 2014, and budget on a cost category basis rather than a line item basis, and avoid that kind of comment in the future.
I'd just like to say that we're very fortunate to have the people in our office doing the work that they're doing. And I don't want to chastise this at all. I think this is, just nitpicking that the state is looking at. My only comment is that I thought it should be coming to the Board of Commissioners rather than to the Dean. So,
Yeah.
And I just want to say thanks for the work you guys are doing.
But Commissioner Lemko, I will say this, you have made that request repeatedly. I will work with our auditor to make sure that next year, that's how it happens. We did have some issues, we always seem to have some issues with the OPEB for the pavilions, the road commission report, which is included in the county's report, wasn't presented to the Board of Road Commissioners until that last week of June. And I feel by default, I'm just kind of in this bad spot with this, because we're the last, we have to wait for everyone else to be done, and it usually comes down to, it's the last week of June. And I feel terrible, but I've just never been able to get out from under that cycle.
We have to put it on someone.
And that's fine, I have broad shoulders.
Part of the job,
But I was even afraid to go to Dave with some of these because I'm,
You gotta put it on someone.
sure,
Take the
well,
hit for the
that's-
team. Take the hit for the
I take full responsibility. We need
I
to do a little
think-
better, and
Nope, you're fine.
No, I think Turt used the proper terminology. It's a little bit nitpicky. Our overall budgets are, we a $38 million general fund budget, but when you add in all the rest of the budget centers that Dean is responsible for, we're what, 120 million? Ballpark number? And the fact that we got $5,000 that got through and wasn't budgeted in the right line item, I'm thinking that's pretty insignificant personally. So, I'm certainly willing to support this letter to the Department of Treasury, but, I certainly am not going to chastise Dean for the job he does, because I think he does a fabulous job for the people of this community.
if we could have your approval effective immediately,
Yep.
that would help, because the last thing I want to do is be late
No,
to correct
this is
it.
immediate.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second, and it is for immediate action, so we'll do a roll call vote, please, Bonnie.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Rennie?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. That would bring us to consulting services agreement, also in Mr. Bott's corner here.
We have a consulting services agreement with MGT to do a number of things for us. They prepare our annual cost allocation plan, which is something that quantifies or compiles costs that we can charge against various federal grants. It's not something that we should do in-house, it's something we need to be very objective and independent of. But they also do our 4D claiming services for both the friend of the court and the prosecuting attorney, and they process the associated time logs that are required for the staff in those two offices to recover the federal funds that we receive. When we bid this out 3 years ago, I have a summary. I actually have the document that went to Ways and Means in June attached here, but our current agreement for the cost allocation plan ended on June 30th. The work for the prosecutor and the friend of the court for the current contract expires on September 30th of this year. Our current contract provides us with an option to renew for 2 additional one-year periods, and we have been notified by MGT that they would be willing to exercise that extension with no increase in fees for the next 2 years. And that would be my recommendation. I know we'll have some discussion on this. I have talked to Bob Cooney, who is responsible for the 4D work through the prosecutor's office, and Dawn Rogers, the friend of the court. They're both in agreement with the extension. Dave is aware of this as well. We've talked a little bit about it, but I did want to provide the information from when this was bid out. We had been with Maximus for quite a period of time, and their bid was higher than MGT. One of the benefits that we have with staying with MGT is we have an individual by the name of Jim Olson, who is very knowledgeable of the federal, the CRP 4D contracts, and he stays on top of the state legislation or any legislative changes with that. So I would ask for your consideration of that.
Charlie?
I would make a motion to extend the current consulting services agreement with MGT of America for an additional 2 years. I guess that would be beginning October 1st of 2014.
Support.
You have a motion by Rennie, supported by Lemko. Further discussion. Herb?
Yeah, in our summary here, the recommendation is award a 3-year contract for the above indicated services, and so I'm questioning, are we doing an additional 2, or are we doing a 3-year contract?
Look at the top of that page that you're reading, the 3-year contract. That was the June 15,
That was the
2011 contract.
Well,
That's when we approved the 2011 contract.
yeah, but a 3-year contract from 2011, are we going to add 3 years? We're not adding 2 more years. I guess that's my question.
I believe if I read the information right, we're only authorized, or they have only agreed to 2 one-year additional periods. It's not a 3-year contract.
Right, it's on page 79. Maybe the information from 2011 is confusing, but it would be a recommendation to extend the contract for 2 years.
Okay.
Further discussion? You know, this is very specialized technical training or purchasing that we're doing. This is a very specific skill set that's needed to complete this project. We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. It brings us back. I think that takes care of everything in your department, Dean. So the next item is the resolution for the appointment of a peer group for the remonumentation grant. That's on your desk this evening. David, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, this is for appointment of the peer review group that pretty much looks at all the properties that are going to be remonumented, and it's probably the same folks that have been doing it for years, I would imagine.
It is.
Looks like it's appointed by our county surveyor. Our county surveyor is really in charge of the process. He's the county representative to the remonumentation grant. And he's asking for your approval. It looks like the contracts have already been approved back in March. And, but they need a resolution from the Board of Commissioners to make it, and they need it retroactive to June 12th of 2014.
Move for approval as presented.
Support.
Motion by Inman, supported by Thomas. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Aye.
Roll call vote, please. I knew she was going to do
The
that.
motion, the
I do
motion
too.
should be
I was
for,
waiting.
it's going to be approved for June,
Effective June 12, 2014. It's going to be a backdated.
I don't know if we can go back, but we can at least approve it for today, immediate approval.
For immediate approval then?
For immediate approval.
Okay. Commissioner Max Bauer?
No.
Lemkool?
Yep.
Thomas?
Yep.
Inman?
Yes.
Rennie?
Yes?
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. Motion carries. All right, we have no unfinished business. We have one item of new business that we added. That would be the approval to post a probation officer position in the district court. Jen, would you like to speak to that, please?
This is, District Court anticipates a probation officer vacancy, and would like for approval. Carol Stocking couldn't be here tonight, so that is why I'm here. But it is only if the position becomes vacant. They just want permission to post it when it becomes vacant.
Move for approval.
Second?
Motion by Inman, supported by Rennie. Further discussion? One of the things that we talked about a long time ago when we did the hiring slowdown thing was that there was some economic advantage to waiting till the positions became vacant before we posted them. It seems lately we've been approving all those vacancies prior to them becoming vacant. So.
All of them, I think.
Chris?
Well, Sonny, I think there's a certain amount of value in allowing a new employee to cross-train with the outgoing employee, and I always take that into consideration.
Okay, further discussion? Larry?
Well, I think we've been, I think when we look at an area of public safety and you take a look at the workload that the district court probation officers have, we got to be ahead of the game, just like central dispatch and deputies. We just can't let that lag.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Would you like us to bring in a resolution to lift the hiring delay?
I mean, that's all you're doing here.
You know, we might as well look at a resolution to eliminate the hiring delay because maybe we can put that on our next Board of Commissioners meeting for next week. You know, we haven't held them to any of them in the last 6 months, so.
If that's the recommendation from our administrator,
I think it's a good idea.
okay.
All right. No other new business. This brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? Seeing none. Commissioner committee reports? Herb?
City Commissioner Jim made the comment about TC Talus, that it's going to be approved at our next board meeting. The board meeting actually has been moved up for 2 weeks from now, or 2 weeks from Monday, that we will be meeting to approve the TC Talus plan. So if you're interested in that plan, we will be getting all the information, including the cost analysis from each of the different scenarios that has been presented to the TC Talus board. So that will be coming, but it's not going to be next month. It will be before the end of the month, and that will give everybody a 30-day period through the month of August to be able to make comment on the whole report.
Okay. Other commissioner comments, reports? Charlie?
Just like to announce that Kingsley is celebrating their Heritage Days this weekend, 2-day event. A lot of activity down at the Civic Center South, a parade and so forth. Should be a lot of fun. Go on down there and check it out.
Okay. Others? I would note that Long Lake Township in special session last night awarded contract to Gosling Zubek for the development, or the planning and development of a parking lot adjacent to the Crescent Shores boat launch. Long time coming. A significant safety improvement for our community. So we have no others, other notices and announcements?
We have a closed session.
Okay, we have a closed session in regard to litigation. I didn't write down who the litigation is in regard to. We need to know that, right?
Yeah, it is,
Whitney Danny versus Grand Traverse County et al.
it's to discuss trial strategy.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Whitney versus Grand Traverse County.
Move to go into closed session.
Bad caption.
For that purpose, yeah.
Yeah.
Trial strategy.
All right, we have a motion by Thomas, supported by Inman, to go into closed session in regard to litigation of Whitney versus Grand Traverse County. Roll call vote, please.
Lemko.
Yep.
Thomas.
Yep.
Inman.
Yes.
Rennie.
Yes.
Max Bauer.
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. David, we do not anticipate making a decision coming out that we will have to announce to the public, correct?
Correct.
So we will go into closed session. We will return for adjournment after the closed session.
Where am I? Who am I?
Why am
I will entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So, second.
Motion by Lindquist, supported by Inman to come out of closed session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are open.
Motion to
We have
adjourn.
no other business. Motion by Max Bauer to adjourn.
Second.
From Inman, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Dickie.